Charter schools, and especially some particular networks of charter schools located in low-income Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, have achieved educational results not only far above the levels achieved by most public schools in those neighborhoods, we're talking about New York City neighborhoods, but sometimes even higher educational results than those in schools located in affluent white neighborhoods. No one expected that. Put kids in good schools and they'll learn. And in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, that comes as a surprise. Why should it come as a surprise to so many?
Because they've heard 1,000 excuses as to why they can't teach them in these neighborhoods, that the kids are poor, that all sorts of things are wrong, except that nothing is ever thought to be wrong with the public schools themselves. It's always somebody else who is responsible. The society should have solved the integration problems, etc.
All right. Let's define terms. Charter schools differ from private schools because charter schools remain publicly funded. But how do charter schools differ from other public schools?
They differ from the fact that the biggest difference is that children are assigned to go to particular public schools. No children are assigned to go to charter schools. The people who apply for charter schools are then selected by lottery. And so the charter schools themselves, well, let me put it differently. Traditional public schools are radically different from almost any other institution in society, whether these are hospitals, sports arenas, automobile dealerships, churches, or whatever, and that any institution, in order to survive as an institution, has to have some clientele that it must please enough for the clientele to come to them. Traditional public schools are radically different in that compulsory attendance laws provide them with a clientele. The clientele has no choice in the matter, and there is no competition among different traditional public schools because each one has a monopoly in its own district. Charter schools are more like other institutions. It survives as an institution only to the extent that it can attract people there voluntarily.
What about teachers in charter schools? Unionized, not unionized, a mix? How does that work?
In the most charter schools, the teachers are not unionized. In the traditional public schools, the teachers are unionized. And of course, the teachers' unions are well aware of this distinction, which has some huge financial implications for them.
Right. All right. Back to the book, you mention charter schools in a number of places across the country, but you focus very intently on charter schools in New York City. You go through the data in great detail. Let me quote you. New York City has a substantial sample of ethnically and socioeconomically comparable students whose educational outcomes can be compared, close quote. Can you explain that just to the extent of a sentence or two?
Yes. Many of the people who are defending the traditional public schools or attacking the charter schools say the charter schools don't get any better results as a whole than the traditional public schools as a whole. It's one of many statements that is technically true and grossly misleading. At the same time, white students and Hispanic students constitute a majority of all the students in traditional public schools. Black students and Hispanic students are a majority in the charter school. Did I say white and Asian students? Yes.
You said white and Asian. All right. Well, in the public schools, white and Asian. Right.
Right. The charter schools, Black and Hispanic. For generations, white and Asian students have been scoring higher on tests than Black and Hispanic students. So to say that they're only equal now is to say that this gap that people have been agonizing over for years has now been closed. Is to state what is relevant. I mean, both statements are true. One is true and misleading. The other is true and has some effect to it.
Right. So I'm going to quote, you just mentioned it, but I'm going to quote this summary of your central finding in charter schools and their enemies. New York City charter schools that have had no capacity to end poverty or racial concentrations of minority students. That is, they're in the neighborhoods that they're in. They take the students who are selected by lottery. They can't affect the poverty of the background of those students. They can't affect the racial makeup of those students. Nevertheless, these charter schools have closed the racial gap in education, close quote. Now, the first time you present this finding, it's in a section where you're being relatively analytical and frankly, a little bit dry. But that goes off like a cannon shot, doesn't it?
I would
You
hope
mean
so.
to tell me we have discovered how to close this educational gap that has been a wound in the nation for decades?
Yes. And that the people who do it are being attacked after they've done it.